Got it.
All right, welcome to G4G Live, the inaugural episode of our brand new live show. I am Avers. I'm here with Moxxie.
Hello.
There we go, from G4G, and MrBoomstick from Double Barrel Gaming, who is, we kind of joked about this in the past, Boom, about you being sort of an honorary member, but now we get to make it official, and I'm happy and proud that we are.
Yes, actually, you guys have been on camera before. This is the first time the world is seeing me. I hope I don't crack the screen.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. So great to have you here on camera. You look good, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good to see you here on camera.
I love the mohawk. I love the hair. That is awesome.
Yes, and I got my Winter Soldier Captain America shirt.
Oh man, I didn't even know that. I
completely meant to ask you about that.
Yes. Yep, Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Show it just a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, awesome!
Awesome.
We're definitely big Captain America fans, so that's going to go over well with this type of audience for sure. So, how have you guys been doing? How's everything been going?
Well, I'm good.
Busy, but awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to just follow that with yes. It's been a busy week, but I'm super excited to be here. I cannot believe that we finally, after all the planning and all the secret backroom meetings that we've had, we're here live. We're doing it live, and we hope that everyone comes out and hangs out for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So about that, doing it live, have the live chat up. So you guys, if you have interjections, definitely let us know in the chat. If you have anything to add to what we're saying, we are much more likely to read that stuff and interact with the chat if it is about the topic that we're talking about. Something I've noticed, I don't know if you two have noticed this, something I've noticed with a lot of live shows, a lot of the stream type shows, and a lot of the podcasts are the chat kind of takes on a life of its own. And then sometimes you see, Moxxie, sometimes you see like arguments happening, and like eventually they're not even paying attention to the show. So we're much more likely to.
Eventually on some shows, the show starts yelling at the chat and it takes on a life of its own in that form.
Exactly. We're much more likely to interact with people as we go along. We're going to be catching up on that. So, give us a chance to take a look at it. Boom's already in there. So try to keep it friendly, try to not argue with people. And, we're going to keep it on gaming for the vast majority of everything that we do going in the future. We will have other segments. We're going to talk a little bit about this most recent episode of The Walking Dead at the very end. So we're going to partition that stuff off in case you don't like it and you only want to see gaming. I totally get that.
Or you haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. So we'll do a spoiler alert as well for people that haven't seen it.
Yes, absolutely.
Boom has a huge interest in Marvel films. Moxxie and I have seen pretty much everything out there, whether it's Marvel, DCEU, or otherwise. So we'll definitely cover that type of stuff and other things as well. Boom's mentioned anime and other TV shows like that. So we will be bringing that in the future. So Crackdown came out. Did you guys get a chance to try Crackdown yet?
No, I actually have not. I have it downloaded. I'm ready to go. Listen, I can tell you this. Crackdown 1 was I thought it was a fantastic game beginning to end. But here's the funny story about that. I was obsessed to the point of delirium, okay, of finding those orbs. And don't you know that I had
that's going to be me. Oh, my goodness.
I had $4.99. And it took, and I really mean this, literally, I drew a map on paper and I was Xing off where I was. I took a 7-day travel thing in a helicopter where I went around and I did nothing but hunt. Finally, after 7 days of hunting this freaking orb, it was on a balcony that I just missed 1,000 times. And I finally got the achievement for it. I think that is one of the best things about that game. I know it sounds silly, but chasing those orbs to power yourself up was amazing.
No, I understand. I got a chance to play it last night, and I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to turn it off. It brought back all those memories from the past. Playing that, was it 2007? I think it was.
Yes, it came out in 2007 with the beta for Halo 3.
Mechanically, gameplay wise, and gameplay mechanic wise, it is still incredible. It is still such a great and fun game and addictive, and you can see why. Like this new Crackdown that's coming out here pretty soon. This is why it's going to do well. All they have to do is port those mechanics over to Crackdown 3, and you're going to have a lot of fun. I'm sure they're going to innovate and add some things, but I mean, I can't wait for Crackdown 3. And I'm so glad that is back. And Pat, the X version looks quite a bit nicer than what was the older one in, like 500p or something like that.
It could have been lower. It could have been lower than that. What about you, Moxxie? What do you think?
I have never played the Crackdown series, and I cannot even tell you how much I'm looking forward to it. And I'm obsessed with collectibles, and I've heard all this orb stuff for years and years. I'm the busiest person like most people have ever met. So there's a lot of games that I've never gotten to, and I've been looking forward to Crackdown 3 since they started talking about it. And I've been waiting for this back compat so I could get into Crackdown. And I'm going to be asking you where that balcony is, and I'm going to be spending I'm going to be up till 5 a.m. trying to find these stupid orbs and really enjoying it.
You know what? I want to really kind of just target in on. How awesome is it that Microsoft made this game an enhanced game? Like, they didn't have to do that.
That was pretty awesome.
A complete surprise. No one saw this coming. There was no leaks about this. You just turned on on your Twitter or your news channel, and boom, there it is. Hey, Crackdown now back, enhanced for your X. I think that in itself is pretty amazing. But also, here's the hidden message in there. Okay, the hidden message is they're hyping people up for Crackdown 3. See, I know there's been a lot of talk in the town about how, it's canceled. They haven't said anything. The delays, it's canceled. It's almost to the point of nauseum, right? But here's the thing. This is me. My glass is always half full, folks. I'm the good guy of the internet. I love everyone, right? I always have a positive attitude. I think that we're going to get a big surprise with Crackdown, and I think it's going to come out, and it's going to be one of those games that people are going to be like, I did not expect this, and I'm happily with everything that they've done with it.
Oh, yeah, no, people that think of all those people that were taking a look at it, and they were making fun of what they saw at Gamescom when drunk people were playing it there in their live stream, and it wasn't being shown off in the best regard. Those types of people are going to try it out for $9.99 on Game Pass, and they're going to end up having a great time with it and seeing what everybody that's been hyped for it has been talking about this whole time. So you're absolutely right about that, no doubt about it. Let's get into some of the topics. So we actually got some breaking news today. So the PlayStation Plus service is essentially, if I have this right, you guys correct me if I'm wrong because it sounds a little crazy, they're taking out the PS Vita and the PlayStation 3 games next March, 2019, not next month,
right?
Yeah,
in a year from now. So is that correct? And if so, what do you guys think about it? What does the live chat think about that stuff?
I'm going to give this to Boom first because my perspective is going to go off in another direction.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the thing. Okay. There are two things that you have to look in this story. Okay. Now, like I've said in the past, I think PlayStation's PR is literally second to none in the entire world. Absolutely. I think that when they have something on their mind or they want to say something, they have a very unique perspective and a very professional way of doing things. I mean, I really, like I said, my hat's off to the marketing people at Sony. I mean, obviously they're the reason why they're 75 million consoles strong. There's just no doubt about it. So you take this story from two bookends. You say, okay, in March 2019, we're not giving you any more PS3 games. We're not giving you any more Vita games. And you're going to get the two games that you normally used to getting for the PlayStation 4, right? So you're like, okay, that sucks because some people still play a PlayStation 3. Some people actually have a Vita. Some people really use the heck out of that service.
Yeah.
But then you put something in front of that, and that is obviously the two games that they're giving away this month, which are nothing short of amazing. And that is, of course, Bloodborne and Ratchet and Clank. And the little negative that we had about the community losing these four games, which come on, guys. I mean, honestly, I'm not playing my Vita and I'm not playing my PS3, so it's no loss for me. But some people still care for it. But then you put these two games in front of that story, and it's like, Like, what's in this hand? Nothing.
Yeah.
This hand, amazing. And that's their marketing.
Classic PlayStation to soften the blow like that.
Before you go, Moxxie, I just wanted to read one.
No, go right ahead.
One chat here. So Zol Games, shout out to him. He's an awesome guy. Did a feature on MrBoomstick. Was that today or was that yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta catch that.
Yeah.
No,
it's awesome. It's a great read.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So he says they are weaning people off of PS3 to prepare for the PS4/PS5 ecosystem coming in the future. So that might actually tie in to something that I know Moxxie has been wanting to say since we filmed the video that we did about this, actually, about the PS5. So go ahead, Moxxie.
Yeah, so those of you that watch our show saw me lay into this just a little bit nervously. And there is more that I wanted to say about this. So we did a show where we talked about the changes to the leadership team at Sony and the fact that they just put a CFO, a chief financial officer, into the CEO role, following previously 1 year ago putting a CFO into the COO role. So now you have all these financial people basically running Sony. And Avers posed the question to me. So based on a source that I talked to who was a CFO for years and years and years, do we think we're getting a PS5? And I said, kind of no. And the real answer is no. I don't, and I'm not saying no, we'll never get a PS5, but I don't think we'll get a PS5 soon. And I don't know if we'll get it, and I don't know when we'll get it, because I have a hard time knowing what I know and seeing what I see, picturing, convincing this financial guy that he needs a PS5 because, Xbox did it, or because you just need another one. Like you're selling PS4s like hotcakes. Why would you need a new one? Yeah. From a financial person's perspective? I get from a CEO's perspective why you would do that, or a gaming person's perspective, certainly. But from a financial person's perspective, this ties right into that. You're removing these free things. You're consolidating things. You're pushing things together. You're trying to me, it's not as much maybe the PS4, PS5 ecosystem. I think that's true. I think that's coming. But I think it's further out than people think. I think it's the PS4 ecosystem alone. I think entirely it's the PS4 ecosystem, because if you're a financial person and you're trying to just stop all the bleeding and hold all the purse strings, I think you're going to say, we're all PS4. Let's get rid of all the other things that aren't profiting very much, that we have to support. We have to pay for servers. We have to pay for software. We have to give away free stuff to keep people on them. Let's just cut all of that. And that's really what Sony's been doing. So this makes sense that they would keep cutting and cutting and just zone into the PS4.
Yeah. So Boom, you're pretty confident that a PS5 is coming no matter what. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, listen, there's no doubt about that a PS5 is coming. The issue that I have is that there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of so-called insiders, right, that have this pegged for 2019. There's a couple of, I have to piggyback on what Moxxie's saying, and she's a businesswoman, and you have to say, why would you come out with a PS5 next year when you're selling PlayStation 4s like it's going out of style? It does not make any sense, right? So there's something else. PlayStation is a brand that many people, including myself, truly enjoy. I love their first party lineup. I think that their single player romps are fantastic. They're some of my favorite. I'm looking forward to God of War. I bought the collector's edition. I can't wait. In 2020 is the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation brand in this country. Mm-hmm. If I was a gambling kind of a dude, and I'm not, I'm a factual kind of a guy, I would say you launch that system that year and you won't be able to find one on a store shelf in the first 6 months of its launch. Why? Well, it's a PS5, right? That in itself is going to move systems, but everybody's going to want to get in on that celebration. See, that's the thing that I loved about midnight launches that we don't really see as much anymore, is the celebration of gaming, of gamers getting together and being excited about a particular game or product. That's the kind of excitement that you're going to get come the PS5, and in the same year it's the 25th anniversary. Sony's going to really do this up. I have complete faith in them. So I don't see it until 2020.
Yeah, so 2020, which would mean that the PS5 R&D would have already been in development, which is the thing that I think could lend some credence to those rumors about PS5. If it has already been in development for a couple of years and they've already spent the lion's share, the bulk of that money that goes into that's billions of dollars, as we talked about, then yeah, I think it'll still come out. Someone in the chat, I forget who it was, they mentioned that, you know, some of the things going on with cryptocurrency, I think it might have been Ernie. Some of the things going on with cryptocurrency could affect that, though, especially if they're going with off-the-shelf parts. And I believe, Moxxie, you posed that same question to the analyst that you spoke of that worked in the industry for 30 plus years. What did they have to say?
Yeah, so backing up a second, I think 2020 would be absolutely the earliest that you could possibly see it. And I think when we hear, oh yeah, PS5 in development, that can mean everything from somebody drew a little cute piece of pencil drawing on a piece of paper to like it's coming down the assembly line, right? We all know that. And I think it's the cute little pencil drawing on a piece of paper, because there's a huge difference between Microsoft and Sony right now, which is that Microsoft made this really interesting deal with AMD where they have parts that are not coming off the shelf. They have their own custom deal, and they signed a deal that gives them, and this is what this analyst was talking about, that gives them a lot of control over AMD because they bought up a tremendous, Microsoft this is, bought up a tremendous amount of stock in AMD and has a lot of control over them now. And they did that because they saw that cryptocurrency is causing this just skyrocketing of part prices. That's going to hurt Sony, and Sony might have already been hurting in that R&D element, and they didn't lock down, to our knowledge, they didn't lock down something with, you know, NVIDIA's, who they're working with, I believe, where they have control over that and they can control the
AMD,
costs of their parts.
Are you talking about Microsoft?
Sony works with NVIDIA currently.
Well, they also have a deal with AMD as well. They both have a deal with AMD. That the thing that the way I understood it, the information that was given to me, I also talked to a few people about this, is that because of Microsoft's owning a lot of stock in AMD, that they can actually get some of these things done, even if cryptocurrency continues to blow up at the level that it has, even if some of those GPUs and CPUs are flying off the shelves and no one can find them.
To our knowledge, Sony doesn't have any deal like that.
No, I have not. I haven't heard of it, and it's possible that information is just not made public. It's always possible, right?
Definitely. So the analyst that I spoke to basically said, if there is no deal like that, which we don't know that there is, that would possibly really hinder progress on a PS5, because that's going to keep going up. We're not necessarily pulling these down the assembly line right now. And year over year, that's skyrocketing to where it may just not be feasible. These companies may reach a point where, unless they have a deal that they have a lot of control, they're just going to reach prices that it's not feasible. They're already not really profiting off consoles. So you have a margin that's this big anyway, and you're just this far from it's going to cost you $100 per console to get it into somebody's home instead of just breaking even on it.
Yeah, when that rumor came out, or the so-called analyst that's in Europe that said that there's only 35 million Xboxes out there, when that came out, I got a chance to talk to 2 or 3 people that are what I would consider to be insiders in the industry, and I asked them about some of those things, and they gave me some interesting responses on that. One of them also offered up some information that said that they already know, Microsoft in particular already knows what their hardware is for their next box, and it's already been in development for a while. And there's some interesting things coming in regards to that type of thing. So that's already in the play. It's just, it is Sony also. Are they the same amount along as Microsoft is with chipsets and all that thing? And is cryptocurrency going to affect it? I am taking more of a stance now, the more I learn about all that it will affect it. And I'd like to see 2020, like you said, Boom. I think it's going to be a little bit longer of a wait because of these complications that are coming. So we have 3 different viewpoints, it looks like. We have Boom saying 2020, me saying a little bit longer, and then Moxxie is now leaning more towards possibly not at all, right?
Possibly not at all. I'm sure they'll do it. I'm sure that they will come up with it at some point. I would say 2020 sounds early to me. That would be absolutely the earliest. I think we're going to see it much later if we see it. Yeah. I'm just going to say that because I don't want my name next to never are we getting a PS5 because that could really result in some trouble. But I think they could find themselves walking up a hill trying to with it. I definitely think that.
And that kind of leads into another topic that we have. We were offered a few great suggestions on Twitter by a few people. Operation was one of the ones. We've done a couple already on the G4G weekly recap, but we're going to bring those up again as well. Operation asked, what would we like to see from each of the three big console developers? And I think he's talking about games and services, but console-wise, hardware-wise, game services, whatever you guys want to go with there. What do you think? What would you like to see Microsoft focus on in this next generation? What would you like to see Sony and Nintendo offer up in the next 4 or 5 years, and including the next generation?
Moxxie, do you want to go first?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, this is first of all, like I've said in numerous circles, everyone knows I support all three consoles equally, right? I mean, but I play mostly on the Xbox because I like the controller better. My friends list is ridiculously large, right? And I just like Xbox Live better. I just think it's safer. I think it runs smoother. You know, their chat, not so much, but for the most part, I'll take it. So I'm going to start out with Microsoft first. Okay. I think Microsoft is cruising in a way as a fan of Microsoft that has me very excited to be a fan of the company. I think that the Game Pass service is going to be something that we're going to be seeing for a very long time. I think that we're going to get bigger and better things. I honestly believe at one point or another, again, this is a topic, and I don't want to go into it too much here, but the Netflix versus Game Pass thing, right? We are judging Netflix 10 years later now. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And you go to Netflix and they have everything. They have their original shows, their original movies, their content's fantastic, right? We cannot hold Microsoft to the same candle in year one. I think it's an unfair judgment. Okay. So what I want to see from Microsoft is I want to see them get into a rhythm where there's a game that everyone's going to want to talk about each and every month on that service. That's what I want. Okay. Yeah. But more importantly, there are two other smaller things. I want more first party games. I think what we got in 2017, even though I enjoyed most of them, was a travesty of justice, considering Microsoft been in the business for as many years as they have. I think that they knew that they didn't bring it to the table for their fans. And I think, secondly, like you saw the story that I did on my channel that dropped yesterday about Sega coming to meet the people in Redmond. They had that big secret meeting that really wasn't secret. And the rumor right out of there was the possibility of Vanquish 2 being an exclusive. Those deals we need more of those. Yeah. Okay. Now I don't care. Listen, I'm not in the camp where you turn around and you say, well, if it's on PC, it's not exclusive. If I'm playing this game on my Xbox and the only other place is the Windows platform, it's an exclusive. If I'm not playing it on the Switch and I'm not playing it on the PS4, it's an exclusive. So that's what I say for Microsoft. In regards to Sony, look, here's the thing. I got to be honest with you. I don't think Sony's doing anything wrong. I really don't. I think that their first-party games are absolutely fantastic. They're the games that I want. I like single-player experiences. I know a lot of people are like, you're playing for 10 hours, 12 hours, and you're done. You know what? I'm okay with that. Now, it would be nice if they had their own Game Pass kind of a deal where this is where it gets good. Those 10 or 12 or 15-hour experiences would do very well in a $10 a month kind of a service. I think anyway, and I would gladly pay it, because after you're done with that $60 title that you put 15 hours in and there's no DLC, and then what do? You trade it in, you get robbed.
Yeah,
or you sell it on eBay, right? So I would like to see them have their own kind of service. And you know what? I would like them to really fix their security issues and that they have with the PlayStation Network. It's so undependable. I mean, we're paying the same $60 a month. I mean, a year for Xbox, right? And you're getting quality. You're never getting your identity theft, right? You're never getting power outages. You're never getting, oh, PSN is down again. I'd like them to finally get that thing together. And Nintendo, look, here's the thing. Nintendo is never going to be the Nintendo of the 80s. You're never going to see the NES and Super NES days of Nintendo. That's just, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Well, they're getting pretty close, though.
Well, you know what? The system is selling. What I would like for Nintendo to do is I would like Nintendo to come out with a little bit more power under the hood so they could really use their first parties.
I agree. And I think that's coming.
Yes, I listen, it's Nintendo. How many times did you, me, Moxxie, and half of the world rebuy that DS or the 3DS or the 3DS Lite or the 3DS XL? I bought them all. I'm a knucklehead. What can I say? Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I want from those three companies. What do you guys think?
That's really good. Cyrus Burke in the chat very much agrees with you. He's very happy that you said what you said, and I guess you nailed it. You nailed it for him. As we're going along, let us know in the chat if we're striking a chord or a nerve or any of that. Let us know what you think as we go. So Moxxie, you had some time to listen to Boom. Did that influence you at all?
It influenced me to mention a couple things I wouldn't have. So I'll just put those up front so that I'm not echoing Boom necessarily. So I'm going to mention the three things, and we said this on one of our shows recently, that each of them are good at. So recently we mentioned on one of our shows, each one of the companies is killing it in one area, and they're showing the others how you do that area. And then they're like trying to copy their friends in the areas that they don't seem to know how to do. So Sony knows how to sell consoles, and they are trying to show everyone else how to do it. Nobody else can figure it out. Microsoft is showing everybody how to do online, and Nintendo is showing everybody how to do games and attach rates. Yes. So I echo Boom on the security thing with Sony. I think that's where Microsoft is leading with everything online. Microsoft definitely leads. Sony is definitely going in that direction with the promotion of Cadera to head of PlayStation. So we can see that coming. From Sony, I feel like each group other than Nintendo, so Sony and Microsoft, they need to listen to their audience. They need to come out with the things that their audience wants. And in the case of Sony, I do think that Sony is a little bit lacking in games. That's an unpopular opinion to have, but I feel that way about multiple platforms. I'm not just saying that about Sony, because I see Sony and I see this 7 to 10 year turnaround. And Sony is having trouble selling their games. And we know that. And we saw at their last press conference, we saw these discussions where you could tell that they have games lined up right now and they're not giving them release dates because they're trying so hard to line up their release dates as carefully as they possibly can to just make sure that they don't land it when Microsoft lands something, or Nintendo. Heaven forbid you land next to Nintendo, because you're screwed. Oh, yeah. And so they're trying to they're tentative. Sony is tentative. They need to get out more games, or at least speed up their cycle, which inevitably would get them more games. They need to put out single player experiences. They need to put out the things that their fan base likes. Gears would fail on PlayStation. They need to keep putting out the games that their fan base likes. Even more so, on that note, Microsoft really needs to listen to their client base. They need to get back to putting out gritty, mature, multiplayer shooters, the Gears type. Like this last E3, I got really lost in the trailers because I was like, is that the same game, or is this the fourth or fifth game that looks like that? Because they were all like cell shaded, cartoony, single player, indie looking. And that's okay. Like the more games, the better. but we lost our grit. We lost the stuff that we like in that place. And I feel like Microsoft, and I sound like I'm coming across like I just absolutely hate Microsoft, and I love Microsoft. But right now they're so focused on PC, and very few people are happy about that. They're so focused on, you know, all these single player cartoon games, and very few people are happy about that. They're not listening to their client base. And I'm sure that this will lead into our biggest conversation, which is the keynote at DICE. And that's another place that we're seeing this. Like, this is what you're focused on right now.
Yeah.
It's not making sense how connected they are to their fan base, and yet how many things drop in translation when they're headed across the bridge. It's like, it's shocking how they're not connecting the things that they know that we want to the things that are coming out.
You said so many good things in there. I'm going to have to try to, you know, store every bit of that in my long-term memory bank. So
You'll have to do what I did with Boom and just reiterate my stuff and then try to do it.
I'm going to do my best, but I just wanted to add something. So Cyrus added a little bit of a clarification and a wrinkle and some context to what I think his original question was. So he says, what about game genres, each platform? I feel Sony kills it in their powerful single player games. Xbox is great at competitive games with good stories. Nintendo is good at, well, Nintendo. So
very much.
So I think he's asking. So in addition to all those things, what do we feel with what they're offering? I'll go here, and then you guys can jump in and cut me off as soon as you want, especially if I say something that strikes a hot button. So I've always had a weird kind of response to some of the criticisms that we hear for the three companies and what they offer game-wise. Cyrus, I agree with what Moxxie had to say about that fully, and I agree with a lot of what Boom had to say as well. I actually think that that Microsoft has really done the single-player element of their multiplayer-centric games like Halo and Gears. I feel like it's actually been done really well, and especially with the co-op type of stuff, that's what I gravitate towards. So that actually wins out over the single-player games on other platforms. I'm talking about Switch. I'm talking about PS4 that don't have a co-op, that don't have an additional horde mode, that don't have all of it together in a 100 gigabyte package like what we can get on the Xbox One right now. So I've actually really always gravitated towards that type of thing. So I don't hear that. I hear, when I listen to podcasts, when I listen to live shows and streams, I hear people very critical of those games. People are saying, what can we change about Halo 5? What do we need to change lately? And I think even Cyrus posed this question on Twitter. I want to say, he said, "What can we change about Gears?" Yeah, he was like, "What can we do? What can we adjust about Gears?" And I jumped in. I had to jump in quick before anybody else did, and said, "I kind of really like what it is right now. I really like what." I
love Gears. Do not mess with Gears, please.
Yes, I feel the same way.
Please leave Gears alone.
Nintendo, like Cyrus said, Nintendo's doing exactly what they should be doing. They're nailing it. Can they do that same thing every year? I don't think so. I think there's definitely going to be a lull. I definitely think they're going to come out with a slightly more powerful version of the Switch, and that's going to get people invigorated again. And then we're going to see those same games that we saw in year one sort of relaunched again, but a sequel to them. And then with PlayStation, you know what, you hear about them having, and I'm not sure if this is still the number or not. If you guys know, correct me if I'm right or wrong on this. You hear about them having 16 first-party studios, first and or second-party studios, and we're not getting anywhere near that amount of games from PlayStation. In a year's time, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, we're not getting 16. So what are these studios doing exactly? Are they making games, or are they just assisting other studios with games?
That's that 5-10 year turnaround.
So yeah, so you're saying it takes 5 to 10 years.
I guess so. Part of that turnaround, they're doing nothing.
Right.
They're not even in development. Part of that turnaround.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, when you say that, you've heard in the podcast, they have 16. I honestly think that's just a checklist for the culture wars that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, listen, what do you got on Xbox side? You have Gears, you have this, you have no studios, you suck, right?
Yeah.
And then you go and say, well, my team Sony, who I just met with the CEO yesterday, and we had lunch, told me we have 16 of them. So what do you think about that? I think that when you start talking like that, it reminds me of when I was in school as a kid and saying that I had two packs of baseball cards more than the person next to me. Look, the systems have something for everyone. Most of us who are diehard gamers own them all,
Yeah.
right? We do have our particular console that we will gravitate to, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good thing when you turn around and say, well, I'm not a neutral. I like gaming, but I like the Xbox better, or I like the Switch better, or I like the PlayStation 4 better because of this. You're not a fanboy. This generation will will beat you down and make you a fanboy. On Twitter, you see it all the time. If you say something against negative, something like, if I were to say something like, well, I didn't really care for that what Sony did, you're a hater.
Yeah,
get them out.
True.
I think that we need to kind of take a step back and say, okay, it is okay to enjoy one brand over the other. Now, when you start bashing a brand, well, then you're barking up a tree for trouble.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you, Boom. I think you pretty much hit it on the nose there. I think Cyrus does too, and he added another bit of information. So he's saying add more modes to Gears, which I agreed with him as well back when we had that conversation on Twitter as well. I would like to see like Beast Mode come from Gears 3, and I would like to see more guns. What I'm saying is, don't change the core gameplay mechanics. Don't change the core gameplay elements, because that's what's always hooked me. That's why I spent 800 hours in Gears 4 since it launched in October 2016.
I don't think that I don't think we need a PUBG mode in Gears. I don't think that I think what we need is and I'm saying this, I don't know if anyone from that that company and that team is listening, not to this little old podcast, the show. Please, for the love of the Gears franchise, let's not open the game fighting robots for 6 hours.
Wait, hold on. Why don't you like the robots? So they're giving you different enemy types.
I gotta be honest with you, dude. I mean, I don't think I'm in the minority when I say this. I think that, yes, it would have been nice for a level or two.
That's again, what it was. It was 2 levels of robots.
It seemed. I'll put it to this way. Let me just say this: when the Gears information leaked, when I did my story about the Coalition possibly working on something else, I needed footage. Right now, I had recorded footage of the first couple of levels of Gears, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Wow, this is boring as all hell." I said, "You know what? I haven't played Gears in Gears 4 in a while. Let me pop on later on when we got Marcus on the team." And I got to tell you, I did side-by-side recordings. I did side-by-side playback. And truthfully, it was literally 2 different games. Like literally 2 different games. And that's a me thing. I just thought that the later part of Gears was so much better than the beginning.
Yeah, they worked their way up to that though. So they started with human enemies in the prologue, right? You're fighting humans. And you kind of go into a little bit of Locust there for a brief moment. Then the robots, right? As you're starting to figure out the mystery, and then the true enemy, which was the Swarm.
Right.
This new Locust Reborn, essentially. So I was okay. They gave us 3 different major enemy types in the game. I don't see that from a lot of games personally. I see the same enemies in every level.
No, it's definitely true. I mean, look, the more different a game is, variety helps a game, expands a game, right? It expands its library, it expands its lore, it expands everything that we enjoy about a game. I personally didn't care too much for it, for the first part of Gears. Never really played Gears online, to be honest with you.
It's fun, man. You got to try it.
I've played. I have played, but you see, here's a funny Boom story. I remember playing Gears. I remember playing Gears 2, and there was somebody that I was playing against, and every time I spawned and I just peeked my head out, boom. It got shot off, and I'm like, after like the 6th or 7th time, I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. And then I played it, and I said, okay, let me get out of this map. This guy's apparently either spawned somewhere. He's a sniper. He literally is the sniper, from upstairs. And I just got wrecked on a regular basis. I don't know, maybe because I enjoy a faster paced game. I think Gears Online is fantastic. I love Horde. but playing multiplayer, I was terrible, and I still am, truthfully.
Yeah, no, that a lot of people have that experience. You should try playing with us sometime if you have a free. You need a couple hours to really.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You have to get warmed up. It's actually it's one of those games that I think a lot of people think they're really bad at because you have to get warmed up. I got my butt handed to me last night, like you would not believe, for like an hour, and then I got my rhythm back, and like that happens most of the time that I log in. But I love Horde too, and that's what I loved about Gears 4 is they did something, you know, unique with Horde. They were like, oh, let's do these classes, let's give people something different. I liked that they did the robots. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously Gears is about the, you know, the swarm and the locusts, but it was cool that they did something different and made it make sense and then connected it back and turned it back into Gears. So in that sense, I thought it was cool. You had to kill them a little bit differently. They were a different kind of threat. It made sense why they existed after it kind of got explained how they existed and how the cog kind of turned into that. And I thought that was cool because it gave it something different, because the criticism inevitably that you get is, oh, it's the exact same Gears again, and it looks the same, and they're doing the same thing, and they're dressed the same, you know, so that kind of gave it like a little bit of a shakeup.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that, definitely. So, you know, in the chat, going back just a little bit, there were people that were saying, you know, making some of the jokes that we've been hearing on Twitter about sensitivity and some of the other things that we've been talking about since the keynote speech. So we'll go into that here in just a moment. But pre-show, we gave our 3 different predictions on what our view count was, and
I won.
Yes. So Boom won, which is a new experience for me. I'm usually really good at predicting numbers, like almost to the T. Moxxie can verify that. She has known me for quite a while.
I can also verify that I lost by absolutely the most.
So what was your number? And if you remember mine, tell me mine as well.
All right. So in pre-show, I predicted that we would have 17 watchers live. Avers predicted 30 to 40, which is kind of unfair now that I look at this, because that's a really big range that you use there. And then Boom predicted 50 plus.
And he got it right because we're at 54 right now. So thank you guys so much.
Yes. Thank you for making me lose. This is one of those situations I'm okay with losing, especially to Boom, because you know it's Boom.
Under this circumstance, this is the best way to lose for sure. If you like what you're seeing, hit the like button, and if you can, share it on whatever social media you have access to. Most of us, from the names I see in the chat right now, most of us are on Twitter. So I just saw the other part of the stream catch up to where Boom did his celebration. So that was hilarious. So share it on Twitter if you can, to let people know what you like about it. And we'll continue to incorporate what you guys are saying as it catches up to where we are. So let's go into the sort of the biggest topic that we've been hearing a lot about lately, which was Phil Spencer's keynote speech. I think all 3 of us have said a little bit about it. Boom did a great, amazing video, and I really liked your video, and I really liked your take and your viewpoint on what Phil had to say.
I appreciate that.
You had a great one, and K Mega also had a great one.
Yes,
and,
his was fantastic.
Yeah, and I loved both of those videos. So I liked them and promoted them. And I agree with what you guys are saying, and I think Moxxie and I are coming from a standpoint that definitely is absolutely not disagreeing with those great points that you made in your video and that K Mega made in his video. Where we're coming from is we have a little bit of inside information from having gone through a lot of what he actually talked about. And I mean, when I say gone through, I mean both of us have gone through situations that can be directly tied back into very specific moments from his speech. And these were not small little moments in time. These weren't, you know, like a 30-minute meeting. These are like over months and months, and in some cases years that we went through some of these things. So we have a little bit more perspective here. Moxxie, do you want to open up, or Boom? It'd actually be better for you to go first and kind of elaborate. Definitely. If there's anything you didn't get to say in your video, if there's anything you didn't get to say elsewhere, what would you like to say about that?
Well, you know, here's the thing. Okay. Now, what we have to take into account here, okay, is that summit is normally not really covered to the way it's been covered, especially this year. It's millionaires meeting with millionaires, basically, right? And Phil Spencer's telling other millionaires how to make more money, right? That's pretty much what what the gist of it is. These big wigs, these big time people in all of these, the Naughty Dogs and the Bethesdas, and
normally I would agree with you, but I disagree with you. But continue.
Okay, all right, no, and that's what makes this show great, because we're not all going to agree, and I think that's fantastic. What he was saying, a lot of what he was saying was, business related within, what's going on in this world with racism and sexism and bias, right? And what he had to say was applaudable. I mean, you can't walk away from that and say, wow, that guy's a jerk. Because if you do, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but I'm saying if you walk away from that speech and you think it was rubbish, then you got to ask yourself what kind of a human being that you are. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying that anyone's right or wrong. I'm just saying that the things that he was saying, at least for me, was very common sense. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to sound too simple, but it made sense to me, because those things I would some of the situations that he's talked about, I would never be racist. I would never be sexist. I wouldn't not talk to someone because they're gay, right? I think that's ridiculous. Unfortunately, the world is the world, and people carry and hold these biases, and they believe in them. Oh, fine, whatever. It teaches everyone's own. But where I think, for me personally, it showed a little more human in Phil Spencer's, not just being this guy that's making 6 and 7 figures a year. That story about that kid in the wheelchair, about how he's racing off to his next meeting. The kid went out of his way to stop to talk to him, and he did. And he stopped and he talked to him, and he explained to Phil Spencer not being able to walk was a big deal for anyone, right? And it meant something really. It hit me in a way. I had spinal cord surgery in 2014 that I wrecked my spine, right? And I went in walking, but I didn't know I was going to come out walking, right? Those surgeries are always risky. And I'm fused from the L5 and all the way through the S1. It was a gigantic surgery. So when he said that story, I was like, wow, I can see where he's coming from, because, he's in a wheelchair and he uses Xbox Live and the games that he plays on Xbox Live. And while he's playing, he's just another person playing. His handicap is not front and center. And that's a big deal for him. And when Phil Spencer said that story, that kind of touched me. That's why I was like, I had to do a story on this. But in regards to, some of the other things he said about like how nasty the playing online could be. Here's another quick story. Okay. My brother, who's in the chat, Neo Mental, is African American, right? As you guys see, I'm white. I'm like a shake and bake bag. I have my dad's parents from Poland. My mother's family is from Spain. It's like a big shake and bake bag. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But I remember getting online and playing Halo 2 with my brother. We used to play all the time, almost every day. And some of the things that we heard in regards to people using the N-word was something that's to this day still like enrages me in a way that I couldn't imagine saying it in jest, let alone saying it the way we heard it. So when he was talking about taking a more proactive way of, getting rid of this cancer that can ruin online games, I was all for it. I mean, that's completely me, and I'm looking at it from a different angle, from a personal. Maybe it's a little bit more. But
Neo Mental said, "How the hell did I not notice that? Is he talking about something else, or is he joking?"
No, I think
I think it goes with the "you're white."
No,
joke.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I almost said that out loud. No, that's definitely great points there. I don't think, at least from what I've seen, and I've tried to check out quite a few different viewpoints on what Phil had to say. I haven't seen anybody say the opposite of what you're saying. So I haven't seen anybody disagree with you there. If you've seen that, definitely correct me. But so far, I think everyone's in agreement on that portion of what he had to say. Everyone thinks that's a good thing. Everyone thinks that including marginalized groups of people is a good thing across the board. I can tell you from, he referenced studies that had shown that having a more diverse team of people resulted in more of a creative environment and attitude and better results overall. I can tell you from experience that that's absolutely true. I always had a diverse team everywhere I was, and I always got better results as a result of that. So that's not wrong at all. I think what a lot of people have been saying is that they're feeling like there's definitely a push for politics to invade a space where politics really haven't had a place before. And so people have a problem with that a little bit. We mentioned the question from Gary where he talks about, if you get deemed toxic and people are reporting you, that can get you in trouble. You can lose your money. How do you fight back? How do you prove that you're not? What can you do to do that? It's going to get to the point to where, and I really do see this happening. Okay. You know how people will actually have a dash cam on their car now, and they want to record everything that happens so that if they get into an accident, you know what I'm talking about? So if they get into an accident, they have proof, right? Because people lie and people say all kinds of terrible things to get out of whatever, or to get whatever they're trying to get from you and to try to manipulate the situation. It's going to get to the point to where not only do we have our dash cam for streaming, our webcam or our Kinect or whatever it is, but we also have another camera that's from our point of view that's recording, hey,
we're wearing a GoPro on our head.
Yes, we're wearing a GoPro everywhere we go, because we've got to protect ourselves now, because people are going to push some of these things in that direction. We've seen it happen. We referenced some of those things, so I won't go into that. Like I said, though, Moxxie and I have some unique perspectives on it, because I saw this speech that he did broken up into multiple speeches. I saw it 10 years ago. So it also, for me, it also harkens to a strong feeling of, wow, is he late with this in 2018? This is happening. Azriel, hopefully she's still in the chat. She was in here. She made a joke about sensitivity training on Twitter, and it was good, because that's exactly what it kind of was back then. We all went through that.
Yes.
So we've kind of gone through it a few times now. I've experienced a few of the things, some of the things you mentioned, and I've experienced some of the things that he kind of referenced before. So I have a different take on those things. And Moxxie has experienced some things as well. And she has probably, out of the three of us, she has the most unique take of anybody I've seen. So Moxxie, if you want to jump in there, and I'll try to jump in where I can.
I'm very interested to hear what she has to say about this.
So I have a couple of things to say. I think the most important thing is the thing that I'm not hearing from anybody, and if you've heard this, shout it out in the chat or send me something. Nobody is mentioning this. This speech is not a gaming speech. Like, this came out of left field. I felt like I was attending an HR event. I felt like I was like at some kind of like HR summit. Like, nobody's talking about, why are we talking about this at this particular presentation? That's what I was the most caught off guard about. I figured, I heard the beginning of it and I was like, oh, okay, this is going to go on 5-10 minutes, and then we'll hear something about games or something else. And you got to think, we're in a time where Microsoft is getting a lot of crap right now for all of the things. Microsoft has had misstep after misstep. If you're a Microsoft fan, you have cringingly watched this over the last several years of them making PR mistake after PR mistake. And here we go again. So in a time where you are being criticized for your games, you're being criticized for your PR moves, you're being criticized by some people for things like Game Pass, of all the things you can do in this 45 minutes, it is actually a really kind of arrogant thing to get up there and almost, it's kind of a strong word, but almost lecture an audience about political correctness and diversity and culture, and kind of essentially talk to people about what your what your HR environment is, because he wasn't actually talking that much. It was actually only the last part of the speech that was about the lobbies and people being insulted when they were gaming. That actually was very, very, very little of it. That was at the end. He was talking about in the workplace and, you know, females on his team or minorities on his team. Another perspective that I have, it's actually ironic. The very thing he was trying not to do, and this is always what happens with this situation, he did by singling out and speaking about, making a speech about women or minorities. You're being offensive to them. You're being patronizing toward them. So as a female, I was like kind of like called out, like, whoa, you got to be more delicate with females because they're not like the rest of us. And that's actually patronizing. That's condescending. And that was for, you know, maybe I've done life wrong, because I have never, I've had and Avers can contribute to this conversation. I've had quite the opposite experience. He actually made a specific comment about when women speak up in the workplace, they're looked down upon as opposed to looked up upon for doing so. And when men speak up in the workplace, it's they're looked at as a contributor, and it's a positive thing. Women are looked at as that's a bad thing when they do that. And then if that woman happens to have a double minority status, which I'm sorry, I don't consider being a woman a minority, so that doesn't count as double to me. But he said it that way. He said if you were female and you also had another status that would make you double minority, that you would be looked down upon for that. I have had quite the contrary experience. Avers can actually somewhat speak to that. Yes. When I have spoken up and when I've made suggestions or when I've, you know, had something to say, quite frankly, in most situations, everybody has shut up and listened, even when it wasn't a good suggestion. Actually, quite honestly, I have not had that experience, and I felt like the speech was kind of, I guess, patronizing toward females and toward some of these people that he was trying not to offend.
Yeah, it looks like Azrael agrees with you in the chat. So she's someone that we talk a lot with, and I've mentioned her earlier. So apparently she's saying the same thing. She says, I don't want kid gloves when you play a game with me. And she also mentioned the workplace earlier as well. She mentioned the workplace. You don't need to be talked to that way. To me, Boom, you're the other male here, so you can tell me if I'm wrong here. To me, it's ironic as hell that you had a man up on stage saying all these things. So we've talked about how it's funny that it's political, that we're bringing that now to the marketplace for games. But then you have a dude do it. They have females that work there. They could have had Bonnie Ross.
It would have been much less condescending for a female to talk about females in gaming.
Yeah,
because it sounded like he was very specifically acknowledging. I felt like if I walked up to Phil Spencer, he'd be like, "Ooh, careful, that's a female." That was, and that's not a good feeling. That makes me feel like I am lesser somehow.
Yes,
which is not what he was trying to say, but it is what he did say.
Yeah, it appears that people pretty much unanimously agree with what you're saying in the chat. If anybody has a counterpoint to that, definitely throw it out there.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be criticized. You're not going to be called toxic here in the chat if you have some type of counterpoint or rebuttal or something. And I think we've proven that. If anybody's seen our comment section on YouTube, that we interact with everybody, as long as you're not spamming or doing hateful type stuff. And we have a pretty huge tolerance for what we consider hateful. So definitely.
And we'll go into that later after you kind of piggyback into the conversation that I wanted you to kind of add to. We are going to go on to that.
So Neomental says, DICE isn't a gaming conference, though. It is a business seminar for corporate side of things. I mean, ultimately, if you came across as offensive, that it was. So that kind of harkens back to something that Boom said that I put a little pin in earlier, if you remember. And I said, I disagree with what you guys are saying. I do disagree with what you're saying. This was not your typical DICE speech. This was not your typical DICE speech at all. There were cameras. The lighting was perfect. He's up on stage. He is at his most confident that we have ever seen Phil, to the point that Moxxie almost hit the line of saying, this is almost arrogance to the way he's talking about females and minorities. So this was very planned. They knew this would reach the world. They knew everybody would see this. Microsoft does not make mistakes. Stuff like this doesn't get accidentally leaked. They very much wanted this out there. They very much wanted to make a political statement in a time when everyone is getting involved with politics. And what I'm hearing, I talked to a lot of people that DM'd me on Twitter, and I actually reached out to a lot of my friends that are in various different fields of work, and I sent them the speech, and I said, hey, watch this 45-minute speech. Just tell me what you think. Just when you're done, just send me your thoughts. I did not have a single person get back to me and be 100% in support of Phil. In fact, most people were also offended. Ironically enough, we're talking about sensitivities. Most people were also on that side after that. And this is a wide range of people. This is I don't have one type of friend. I have friends of every different demographic, every age group. If you want to throw politics into it, every different political leaning that there is, and they all kind of noticed the same things about his speech that Moxxie is saying and some of the things that I'm saying. So it really comes down to that. I mean, if anybody has anything to counter any of that stuff, that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see from this type of show. And we want to add that conversation to ours. What do you think, Boom?
Well, I mean, look, that's the one thing you're going to get on this show is honesty. You're going to get professionalism, and you're going to get three people that have worked in the business in one way or another. They're going to come out, and we're going to say our opinion. I don't agree with being offended. I think that he was on point. But again, I also, not to sound like I'm taking sides, agree with my brother that DICE is it's kind of like a corporate rump. You're dealing with all of these big name people within the business. That speech wasn't necessarily, I mean, again, people can come off and say, yeah, I felt a little offended because I'm a woman. I totally get Moxie's point, not arguing that at all. My point is that this speech was explaining how Microsoft handles their inner workings with their business, having different, ethnic backgrounds and different cultures, and respecting people's, ideologies. And I guess I didn't get where he was like, well, you have to do that, corporate America, because otherwise you're going to be wrong. I did not get that. I really enjoyed his speech, so much so I watched it 3 times. I'm going to be honest with you. So that's a lot of time I'm never going to get back.
And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the things he said at all. Like, my biggest thing is, if you truly, truly have this environment that promotes the blending of all people, all people are so blended, you don't talk about them like they're different. You don't notice that they're different.
I can see what you're saying.
My question to Boom would be this. Do you think it would have made more sense to do 20 minutes of the speech about what the whole speech was about, and then 25 minutes of the speech about where the business is going, more in the business sense, the gaming sense, what they're doing with him on the EVP role, something that's more related to the gaming side? So not exchanging that speech, but shortening that part to where the whole thing wasn't about the culture. Hypothetical question.
No, it's a fantastic question, and I think I have a pretty decent answer. I'm going to say no, because I think that if you take away anything from the speech and you lower it, it's going to lose its substance. There was a lot said in 45 minutes. There was so much said that it could have been more than 45 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. I think what he said, again, this is just me, I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was very forward thinking. And again, you got to understand, I think that this speech has a lot it's following a situation, and I like to segue this into our next topic, mm-hmm. the violence that has been in the world as of late.
Yeah, you're right.
And of course, I'm referring to the 17 people that died in Florida in that horrible school shooting, right? So yes, I think that a lot of this speech, with understanding and everything that he had to say, wasn't necessarily aimed, right? It wasn't aimed at that particular event, but it probably had something to do with it in one way or another. We'll never know, because I didn't write his speech, right? You didn't write the speech. again, what I like about the three of us is that we all come from a different perspective, but we all respect each other's opinions. And
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
great.
Yeah, we'll get into that topic that you just brought up here in a moment. But I mean, I'm not just saying this because it's our live chat and it's the first live chat, but this is like the best chat I have ever seen.
It's
I literally
fantastic.
I wanted to read every single one of these things and just do a podcast about this chat here.
There's few of us that it's really hard to read all the chat messages. So if you've said something to us and we've ignored you, it's just because there's not a lot of time to read them, or at least
I do want to just want to make mention of this, and actually shout out to Crap Gamer for showing up and helping us promote this. He said that he could have dropped the heap eating crap and the Ninja Rockstar statements, and you know what? I have to agree with him on that because
boom.
I listen. I didn't say I loved every part of his speech. I said I loved it, but he's 100% right. I don't think
that was very strange. I've never thought of rockstar as a male word
or ninja.
Okay.
Or ninja.
I guess I left the corporate world a couple of years back, so I guess I missed the ninja thing. What is that?
So he basically said like that they did some sort of, correct me here, Boom. They did some sort of thing where he said that they like searched words in like job listings that are associated with being male words.
Yes.
And the words he mentioned were rock star and ninja. And they basically said females will avoid job listings that say things like rock star and ninja, that remarkably less people apply and way less females apply. And I'm like, isn't rock star, like, think of sales, right? Have you ever seen a sales job listing that didn't say rock star? Like, I don't think of that as being a gender word.
No, I don't think of it as being a gender word. And I remember females calling me that when they were above me. And I remember the opposite happening, where we referred to females as rock stars when they were really good at
that was
whatever.
Really weird.
That was a term that was thrown on somebody that was just amazing at everything they did. That's where that came from.
Right. Yeah. I don't consider that as a male or female word. I just think of it as a word per se.
Before we do segue, do we want to hit the topic of the digital library and the topic of the toxicity thing?
Yes, I think that's important.
So go ahead.
So if you haven't caught our most recent show, we were posed a question from one of our watchers, Gary. I haven't seen Gary in chat, but shout out to Gary if he sees this later. He basically posed the question, what was obvious from that speech is there's an increase in sensitivity. And one of the things that kind of came at the end of the speech is we're cracking down on people being mean to other people, essentially. If you can use a broad word, the word would be mean. And the question that was posed to us on Twitter was, so what happens if somebody decides that you're toxic for whatever reason, any reason, and they decide to tell their friends that you're toxic and they all want to report you? And you get banned, your account gets banned. And your account getting banned in this sense doesn't have to mean you did anything. It just has to mean that a few people decided to report you for something. What about that situation? What about your digital library where you own, in his case, he said he owns 300 plus digital games. And this connects to something that I've noticed. And I know Avers has said he's noticed. This word toxicity has evolved in this last few years. And the speech really pointed to this. The word toxic used to be used like the word hate. It was a really strong word, and you could only use it to describe really, really bad things. And now I see the word toxic used when someone just disagrees with me, or when, I see it used when I would certainly not consider something to be toxic or really anywhere close to it. So the question that Gary posed is, so what happens when toxicity's definition keeps broadening and broadening and broadening, and, a gamer gets considered to be toxic for whatever reason, and that gamer gets reported and that gamer gets banned, and they had a digital library and their money is gone?
Well, like anything, there's going to have to be guidelines, obviously. I don't think I'm saying anything that's rocket science here, right? I don't think you can call someone an a-hole and be like, wait a second, that dude Get him out of here. He's no good. I don't think the two bouncers are going to come knocking at your door and pull you out of your headphones and drag you away and be like, get this guy into the dumpster. He's garbage, right? No one's going to do that. I think, yes, it is. There has to be clarification. There has to be a standard. I hate to say this, that's met for you to be considered someone that's going to be banned. Because look, a guy like myself, right? I have 720 plus games digitally, right? That has nothing to do with my physical collection, which is ridiculous. That's just digital, right? And that's just, I mean, I'm running 14 terabytes on my Xbox One X right now. So I buy a lot of games. I download a lot of games. So obviously, if someone would report me, let's say, for instance, they heard me on the podcast and they'd be like, you know what, that guy Boom, he's a real MF. I want to report him. I don't like what he said about the PlayStation, and I'm going to go out of my way to see if I can get him.
That's exactly it. What if they just don't like you?
You know what? I think there has. Look, I don't think a company is going to take the chance of being that company that is now brought into the news. They're getting sued by somebody because they were banned for no reason. Again, maybe I'm giving Microsoft too much credit. Maybe I'm giving Sony too much credit. Maybe I'm giving Nintendo too much credit. I just think that these are corporations that have standards. And I don't think that because someone makes a complaint against you that you're going to get all of your digital library taken away in one fell swoop. I think there's going to
agree, but where's the line? How do we find that?
That's something that should be. That would be something to be brought up to. You know, maybe we can reach out to them on Twitter. Maybe they can do some sort of a clarification on that. That's a whole subject for another whole show.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
You know, I mean, I'm going to go on the side of caution here and think that there's going to be more to it than someone just making a complaint and accusing you of being a toxic gamer. They have to be more specific on what that clarifies. And, you know, do you get 3 complaints and you're out? Do you get 10 complaints and you're out? I don't know. They have to clarify that.
So yeah, Cyrus has a great comment here. So he said, for Microsoft to crack down on this, they need very specific guidelines on what is considered toxic or not. I'm talking guidelines made by top tier lawyers who know how to articulate on this. So it is a complex thing they've gotten themselves into. It can be quite a can of worms if they really want to open this up, because it's, you know, this type of thing is going to take years and years of refinement, which means in that time period, in those years, people are going to fall through the cracks. Some people are going to be innocent and be basically called guilty, and that's just the way it's going to be. And people are going to lose their libraries, like the guy who recently lost it on the Sony side of things for having a name that was considered.
So it's happened. We've seen it happen,
and it's actually happened on Xbox as well. It's just not that publicized. It was years ago. But go ahead. Boom.
No, I was going to say the thing with Sony is one of those instances where you say that's so Sony, and the story that Avers is talking about is a guy, when he was 12, made it an offensive name, right? And I honestly don't think it was that offensive, to be quite honest with you.
I agree.
I mean, it's abbreviated in a way that unless you're saying it out loud, you might not even know what it means, right? You just see that name, like, wow, there's a lot of vowels. And
not only that, you have to say it with a certain accent for it to sound.
You have to say it out loud.
So now, what was it, 6 or 8 years later, he gets a notification from Sony saying, hey, your name is offensive and you're out. Now, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. He should have been given an opportunity to change his gamer tag. Oh, wait, hold on a sec. I'm sorry. Sorry, PlayStation. You haven't figured out how to change your names as of yet. Let me rephrase that. He can change his name. So this is why it's even more ridiculous that he was banned, because now he's not given an opportunity to correct something that he did when he was a kid, literally a kid. 11, 12 years old, he makes a silly name. We're kids, right? We did silly things like that, right?
Right.
So he's now an adult, and I'm sure at one point or another, he's like, yeah, what's your gamer tag? And he writes it down. He doesn't even say it because he's like embarrassed.
Yeah.
but Sony doesn't give him the opportunity to change that, and they just banned his account. I think that because it was publicized and because there's so many news media outlets picked this thing up, he's probably going to get it back one way or another. I just think
I've heard of Sony not really giving those things back once this type of thing happens in the past.
Well,
I've never heard of them giving it back.
Sony is not good, and I got another Boom story for you if you want, and it's not really me, it's my brother. Okay. In September, right before, in August, prior to Destiny 2 coming out on the PlayStation, my brother had purchased it digitally, the $100 edition, right? So he played Destiny 1 on both systems, but came to the realization that all his friends had moved over to Xbox. So he was going to play where his brother plays, where all his friends played on Xbox. He called Sony and said, hey, I want to cancel this. The game doesn't come out for another 40 days. It's like the middle of August. And they're like, sorry, you can't cancel it. So my brother said, okay, called his credit card company, and they put a stop payment on that payment. Next morning, he gets up. He can't log into his PlayStation. They banned his account.
Wow.
So he called, spent numerous days, and I really mean this, days on the phone fighting with Sony. And he eventually was, the only way they would unlock his account is by him paying for the Destiny game, for the $100 edition. So the fine folks at Sony don't really care about, and now that it makes me wonder, will this kid ever get his account back? That's questionable now.
Yeah, it's true. Did we cover the other part of that, Moxxie, from what you were saying? The toxic portion, and then what was the other thing? Did we cover all of it?
Yeah, I think so. So the two questions, just to reiterate, were how do we deal with this broadening version of toxicity and what's considered toxicity, and how do we deal with account bans? So I think we hit both those. I have to ask, re-chat this if this was you. It went by really quickly and it was a while ago, but somebody said something hilarious. This chat is awesome.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And somebody said, I'm offended that Boom watched the speech 3 times. And I was laughing so hard. And I tried to go back up and find it, and I couldn't find it. So if that was you, re-chat it or tell me that was you, because that was funny. Hilarious.
That was funny. And when I just want to clarify something. I've talked with Moxxie a little bit today about this. We haven't had a lot of time to talk about these types of issues, but I talked to her a little bit today. You know, when she's saying she's offended by what Phil said, she's not speaking in the literal sense of she actually got mad.
I'm not personally offended.
She's not really offended. She's saying that it's patronizing to speak about women in that way. Azrael agreed with that. I believe, if I'm correct, Lady Foxfire's in the chat. I believe she has said something to that effect on a podcast or two at some point in time in the past as well. So if you have, let us know. Foxfire. And I've heard other women say that, and I can identify with that. If I was a female, that's exactly how I would have felt hearing that portion of his speech as well. So I totally get that. No one is really truly offended. We've all got, the 3 of us, Boom's background. He's got thick skin. The 2 of us came from an era and a time where, that scene in Glenn Ross where Alec Baldwin is cussing at everybody at the top of his lungs and telling them to get out, and they don't have a job anymore. That's where we came from. So we don't have any. I
actually found it really funny. I actually found the speech really funny. And I came out of it and I was like, why was that the speech? Like, I'm definitely not personally offended because I said, I must be doing life wrong. Cause I was like, well, that's not me for sure. But just the pure acknowledgement of these differences between us shows that you're talking. It's hilariously ironic. You're talking about being more progressive than us, but you're pointing out the differences between us. So you're not progressive if you're doing that. And that's okay. I mean, that's all well and good, but why wasn't it a business conversation about games if you're the head of Xbox? That was my big question. That's the thing I keep not hearing in the conversation is why was that what you chose during a time when Xbox is under so much fire for so many other things?
Oh, yes. That's what I said in the video that we did on Weekly Recap on this channel here. It's basically everyone saying, where are the games? He's come out and said, I've seen the memes that say, where are the games, and making fun of us. And he's like, I see you guys asking for games, but I raise you an identity politics speech instead. And that's what
exactly.
And it's just interesting timing. Here's what I would have done if I was in that case. And I'm, I don't have as much experience as Phil does. He has quite a bit more experience, 20+ year career there. But what I would have done is I would have delivered the games first. And then if I had a political agenda that I wanted to shove on everybody, I would have done that later on after everybody's a little bit happy and they've eaten and everybody's calmed down. But that's just me.
It's so funny that everybody's been asking for swagger from them for so long, and that this was the form in which it was delivered. I mean, that's pretty funny. Like, everybody's like, where's the confidence? Where's the swagger? Where's the commercials? Where's the boxes in the Game Stops? And then this was the form in which we found the utmost of possible confidence, which is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing a bad job hosting because I just want to read the chat because it's been
too
incredible.
It's been really good, really good.
So you mentioned it. We have a good segue. If one of the three of us thinks of something that we wanted to say, because I had a lot of other things that I was prepared to say, but I feel like we really kind of nailed the conversation on that as it is at the moment. But if we do, we can always come back to a topic that we had. So Boom, you mentioned the state of things right now with violence and a lot of the things that are going on and how that could negatively possibly impact the games that we're going to get and what's going to happen with regulations for us gamers. So if you'd like to take that away, go ahead.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We can go back to Blood in Mortal Kombat and remember the times where there were lawyers and senators, like, we got to fight this or our children can't see this. And yet I remember watching let's say, for instance, the Planet of the Apes or any of those other Sinbad movies where people were impaled with swords, right? But yet I didn't run into my school and impale anybody on a sword, right? I didn't ride on horseback and drag someone behind me. So, this fight with the violence and blaming the industries, meaning the music industry, the video game industry, and of course, the movie industry is a cop out. And I really, and what's sad is that of all the violences, here's a stat. Okay, we're not even in March, right? So we're literally 2 months into 2018, and we have already had 30 mass shootings in this country. Okay, now I saw a lot of tweets about violence in other countries that have video games. You don't see this kind of violence in the UK. You don't see this kind of violence in Japan. You don't see this kind of violence in Australia. Many other countries have video games, and there's no mass violence like it is in this country. And that goes back to who is able to purchase these types of weapons. Okay? The kid that did that mass shooting in Florida, who I believe was 17, walked into a local gun shop with a load of cash, bought that gun, did a background check that was an hour long, only an hour, bought the rounds, and went and did his thing, right? Unacceptable. I don't care if you're law enforcement background like myself or the average person. That is unacceptable by any stretch of the truth. The reason why these shootings continue to happen is because people are getting their hands on these high-powered rifles that are not mentally equipped to handle them, and should not be allowed to purchase them. A lot of these shootings are younger people. There's no reason why anyone under the age of 21 should have a gun. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm retired, right? I'm retired from law enforcement. 21 plus years. Carried a firearm my entire career. But in order to carry a firearm concealed after I retired, I had to go and be qualified. I had to get a separate permit for that from the county that I live in. So I had to follow all of these rules, and I came from law enforcement. So there's some sort of a disconnect here, folks. I mean, again, if you're an NRA participant, no problem. I don't have a problem with guns. I have a problem with someone who is under the age of 21 and who has a mental history having a gun. And that's that again. The minute this happened, and I don't remember the senator's name. He was from Kentucky. I don't remember his name. I did a story on it. I should know his name. He immediately went to video games. And everyone went crazy on Twitter because, and I don't remember, again, I'm terrible with names. I'm so sorry. Someone said on Twitter, I think it was, oh my God, what was his name? He said that he never saw a guy run into a school holding a copy of GTA 5 and shoot up a school. That was Sobsky that said that. That's right. That was Sobsky. Shout out to him. And he's 100% right. The games aren't killing people. Guns with people who are insane are killing people.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know how anymore. I really don't have anything else to say about it. But I think that, the whole violence thing is being pushed onto the industry is unacceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm never going to go full into politics on this show or anywhere. I don't even do that with my closest friends, to be honest with you. So I won't do that. But what I will say is that I definitely think that we need to be careful what we contribute to these conversations and keep it at a minimum, because if they can, they will definitely regulate the industry. And what we've seen from regulations over the last 10 years, it hasn't been good. You can regulate yourself into bankruptcy if you're doing it in the incorrect way. Video games are very healthy. The industry is growing at an unbelievable rate. Phil even rattled off some statistics in his speech about that, which I loved hearing. And we're going to hit 120 billion this year. Most likely, there's going to be over 2 billion people playing games in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's just going to continue to grow if we let it grow. It's kind of works like a free market, almost a perfect free market right now, and we need to let it stay exactly what it is. The ESRB, I believe it was Cyrus mentioned that. Another great comment from him. We kind of have it. It's regulated right now. Enough. We are where we need to be. Video games are definitely not the problem. That's all I'll say. We can move on from there. Moxxie, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with the, obviously regulation isn't something we want. We're seeing it kind of hitting in the microtransactions area. And, that's totally different, but that's not what we want. I think all of us that play video games know that video games make people learn strategy. They make people learn, fine motor skills. Like they're certainly no different than movies in terms of like violence and things like that, but they actually give people an opportunity to do things that are much, much better than a lot of the other things that we're exposed to. So as far as what they will or won't try to regulate, unfortunately, we don't have any pull there, but that's always what I see in video games, is it actually has the potential to really help young people shape themselves as opposed to having any potential to contribute to violence. I guess that's all I really have on that.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we doing on time? We're about 1:30. So you guys want to continue with some of these topics? What do you have? What do you guys think?
Sure, we can keep going. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as long as the people want to keep hearing us talk, then I'm in for it.
Okay, so we've got Sea of Thieves beta and a lot of news and a lot of things coming out around all that. Did you get a chance to play any of these stress tests? Boom.
No, unfortunately, the couple of times that I just got hung up busy. You know what? Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you.
Be honest.
Even if I could, I probably would not. I played enough of the beta where I want to go into this with fresh eyes. Okay. I know how to handle. I know the controls, right? I know the controls. Yeah. I know what it's going to look like, and I really just want to I want to turn on the game, and I want to walk up to the dock and just look out at that sunset and be like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
That's and then of course I'm going to get stabbed in the back by another pirate, and that's fine. That's fine. But that's okay. But I want to see it with fresh eyes. I played about 5 hours of the beta. That was more than enough for me. and I'm really interested to see what they're going to do for the people that kind of want to do. Again, you're not going to play this game solo 100% of the time, but there's times where you kind of just want to take a small ship out and just go do your thing, and you don't need a whole crew to do that. And I'm hoping that they really make that available. You know, I know it's a multiplayer game. I get it. I know you're gonna have fun with your friends and you're gonna drink beer and then throw up on each other. I get it, but I also want to be able to just go out there on my own, pick up a mission, and do my own thing every now and again. I hope that's
definitely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So Moxxie, you finally got a chance to dive in.
I did.
How did you feel about now really getting to play the game?
I have a lot of things that I'm wondering about Sea of Thieves, and they're all different. So I do wonder what other modes and what other things we're going to see. I wonder if there's going to be kind of that opportunity to do like a co-op or a single player or any of those types of things where, you know, you might be able to do something where you can't get attacked. But I actually, I got to play a little bit with Avers and a random, and it was hilarious because we actually got attacked on this gigantic ship that I was steering. And I literally just drove by, like nothing hit us. And I just steered and I just drove by, and the cannons just kept flying over the ship. And I just drove by, and I was like, we literally took no damage. And so, you know, if that was probably really good luck, but if that were to happen again, it's like, hey, if you could do that, maybe it wouldn't even be that bad if you're in an open world and people are trying to attack you. I think the game has like this, I've heard a lot of people say this, it has this weird addictive quality. Like you're playing it and you got your teammates holding up this map and you're trying to find this stupid island that's this weird shape and you cannot find it. And everybody's holding up their lanterns and their maps and they're getting impatient and they're like turning their map around, looking at it and holding it back up to you. And you're like, I'm trying to find it. And then before you know it, you're like, this is so much fun and I want to play this again. So it's got this really interesting quality to it. Like there's some really unique challenges, like finding the islands, or, you know, you're trying to dig up the treasure chest and you get attacked from behind and your teammates are goodness knows where. And, you know, you're playing it and you're like, yeah, this is cool. This is all right. But it's a phenomenon. It's like PUBG. It's not that fascinating when you're in there. It's fascinating when you log out and you're like, I want to go back and I want to play that. And I think it's going to be, you know, I'm kind of agreeing with Boom a little bit. I don't always go crazy with all the beta stuff. I don't always like want to play a ton of beta before the game comes out because I want to enjoy the game as the game really is.
Yes.
But I'm definitely looking forward to maybe getting into one more stress test and really looking forward to the real game because I think there's going to be a lot to it. And shout out to Boom, since Boom's sitting here. He did this awesome video about it. And he made me laugh so hard I had to pause the video like 3 times, talking about an interview that Jez, and shout out to Jez from Windows Central, who did an interview with some of the devs who were talking about some of the things that are coming in the future. And like one of the things was there's going to be, the only microtransaction is going to be pets that you can buy, that you can like have with you, and your teammates can like pick your pet up and throw it. They can shoot it out a cannon. They can do all these things to your pet. And the way that it was described and the way Boom did it in its video made me laugh so hard. Like that is going to be such a blast. And in that sense, Sea of Thieves really has something unique. If you go look on eBay and you look at how much those controllers are selling for,
all the
look
stuff,
at just all the merchandise and all the stuff that's out there. If you look at Twitter and how much it's buzzing, and you look at how much fun people are having in the beta, how many people are streaming it, they have something really unique on their hands there. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, I got to say I had the same experience, and it kind of leaves you with the I don't want to call it an aftertaste because there's usually a negative connotation when you say that, but it leaves something with you where you want to get back into it. You kind of feel like a weird serenity or something I can't quite put my finger on that makes you think about it after you're done with your play session and whoever you played with.
Really, seriously.
Yeah, so like I really am excited for it. I hope that they speed some of that extra content along because I do think the game it's a little empty as we've seen it so far. Right. So if they can speed some of that content along and get that stuff out that Jez talked about in his great articles, I think it's going to be a really, really great game. That legendary stuff that we heard about is going to be incredible. So I can't wait for it to come out. So that's pretty much the majority of the gaming topics. we wanted to talk a little bit about the episode of The Walking Dead, so we are going to do that to end it instead of outros.
Yes.
So that section of time that's 5 or 10 minutes of outros of a lot of shows that are out there is going to be something that is non-gaming, and sometimes that'll grow and it'll be more time. So if you're going to watch it and you haven't seen it yet, you don't want spoilers, then I would mute or check out and come back once you have. If you don't care because you're not going to watch it, I think Cyrus said he stopped watching it in season 3. Why did you stop watching it, Cyrus? So let us know as soon as you hear this.
What happened in this episode? He might start watching it again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would always recommend people come back because he says, go ahead and spoil it. I'll catch up in a few years. It's a great show to binge. It is on Netflix. It is one of the reasons why I have not canceled my subscription on Netflix, because it's just so easy to let it autoplay, even though I own the seasons digitally. You can always do that and catch up and then talk with us about that. We like it a lot. I've recommended Trev Chan if you need a channel that talks about it. I liked one of his videos earlier today. It's on my Twitter feed, so you can check that out if you want to hear more about that as well. But before we go into that, a lot of people I know are happy after the last episode. Eric the Red said so. He's a big fan too, so that's good to hear as well. Before we go into that, so just a little bit about what we're going to try to deliver here on G4G Live. So we do have some things planned in the future that are pretty cool. I think Boom spilled the beans on some of that on another show. So that's perfectly fine though, because that was only
leave it to Boom.
That was only the tip of the iceberg.
I have loose lips, man. I'm sorry.
So we do have that stuff coming. So that's definitely in the works, and then bigger things years down the line. So hopefully you guys stick with us. I'm very happy that we got this many viewers today. That's incredible, especially at the time that we went a little bit earlier than a lot of the other shows go.
And
so
look, guys, yes, I won the bet.
That's all Boom actually wanted.
What was that?
Yeah, Boom wins. I said that's all Boom actually wanted, which is totally a joke, but Boom does win.
So what we're going to try to do is like what you saw tonight, keep it mostly about games. We're going to specify when we have something that's not games. There will be serious topics. There will be serious things like what we discussed. Yes. The chat seemed to love all of that stuff. It was going crazy with people offering what they had to say. So that's what we want to see, is more interaction from the chat. In the comment section, once the video is up, same thing. We got a lot of great compliments in there. Face, who is he's a Sony guy, and he's always been commenting on our stuff for a while. So he's been coming back and continuing to come back, and he had some nice things to say about us as well. So that's good. We want that type of interaction. He's a good dude. Yes. I've gone back and forth with him before. So thank you guys so much for that. We're going to do our best to really kind of knock it out of the park and get better as we go along. So can't thank you enough. So that's pretty much the portion that is gaming. So you got to see a little bit of a pause there. So you got to see the episode with your wife. Is that correct, Boom?
Yes. Yeah. My wife. Okay. Now we saw the episode on Sunday. Today is Wednesday.
Yeah.
She woke up this morning and be like, you know what? Not good morning. I can't believe they killed Carl.
Yep. I know exactly.
I mean, she is literally like, we could be watching, like right now we're binge watching The Librarians. Now, I don't know if you ever saw it. Fantastic show. Literally.
Say it again?
The Librarians.
The Librarians?
Oh,
yes.
Okay. No, I haven't seen it.
Fantastic show. Love it. And we were watching an episode like last night, and she just turned to me and she goes, mid episode, I can't believe I'm just really sad that they killed this kid. And I did not take it that way, because I'm going to be honest with you. I liked him later on in the middle of he was that bratty kid. I want the gun. I didn't care for him as a character, but I did respect him where he went. And I'm right there with my wife. Like, I am blown away. Like, I thought he was going to be the last man standing of everyone, to be honest.
Yeah. So
I mean, how do you guys feel about it?
I'll go before you on this turn, Moxxie, if that's okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So I actually had the weirdest thing happen that doesn't usually happen. Walking Dead is a show that I admire on a level where I can not have expectations. So I never have that thing where it's going to meet a certain expectation or not, which makes it like not like any other show that I've ever experienced, because I always kind of have a little bit of expectations. You know, we talked about this a little bit, Boom, with like the Star Wars movies, and you know, you hear all this hype and stuff, and then you go see it, and you're kind of disappointed because the hype was so big. That doesn't happen to me with the show. For the first time ever, I was actually numb and felt nothing while I was watching it. It was as if, you know, it was as if I didn't care at all about the characters or whatever. So I kind of thought that was like the same thing, where I don't really care for Carl that much. He wasn't that much of one of my favorite characters. Because I just don't gravitate towards children in shows and movies for whatever reason. But then it hit me like later on, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't go to sleep for some reason. And it just kept bothering me. And I didn't feel good for a few days until I started to read some of the things that some of the stars of the show were saying, where they were saying that they were depressed, that they were going through things themselves. And then it started to kind of, I could kind of deal with it a little bit. I thought it was a great episode. I referenced Trev's Chan before. I'll put a link for his videos in the comment section at some point. And you can see it on my Twitter if you follow me there.
He's fantastic. You should definitely check him out if you like.
He's very, very good at cutting through all the bull crap. He gets a pretty good percentage of his audience that love the show, and then he's got a good percentage of his audience that watch every episode and they hate the show. And so he's got a good back and forth with both of us, with both of them. And you know, he basically summed it up pretty well. He said it was his idea, his opinion of the perfect episode for what it delivers. And I do agree that that's exactly what that show delivers. It's about drama. It's about human interaction. It's about the struggles that we all go through. It's not about so much the horror element or the zombies or the ultra violence or the, you know, heads getting cut off or bodies getting slashed up. That stuff is there as well for people that like that, but it's really more about you know, how deep these interactions can go. They also had a lot of subtext and a lot of subplots that are not obvious, that you don't see. You could be watching the show for 2 or 3 years and there's a subplot running that you don't notice until they do something that kind of hits you over the head with it. You know, to use a bad pun there. Moxxie, what do you think? How do you feel?
You know, I think I have an interesting perspective. I guess I could say that maybe I did similar to what you did, where I was kind of not feeling the impact that I thought I would. I almost think that's coming from a place of like, I appreciate show writing for one thing. So no matter who they kill, it's like, I see the story. I see why they're doing it. No matter who it is, I feel like, oh, I'm going to miss them, which is the thing that you showed us of like the actors and their responses to it. That's kind of how I feel. I'm like, oh, bummer, we won't see that person anymore. But I see that it's writing and I see that it's good writing, and I'll always value good writing over what I personally want. That said, I feel like I've kind of done the same thing over the last few days. I've like thought about it and I'm like, why did I not have more of a response? I honestly think that I'm looking at the actor. I'm looking at Chandler Riggs and I'm like, can you imagine being 8 years old and filming on and being basically on set, like essentially kind of doing almost like homeschool. He didn't do homeschool, but almost until you're 19 years old. And that's your life. Like that actor has got to be just chomping at the bit to have a different life. Like he's got to be ready to move on. And I think I'm seeing it from that perspective, which I realize is kind of wacky because it's not even Walking Dead related, but I'm like, this kid has spent his entire life with the same people doing the same thing. And if you think of the way probably we all grew up, we did all kinds of different things. We tried out different things and we didn't do the same thing, have the same job, basically. Basically his schooling, his job, his family, his friends was all exactly identical for 11 years from 8 to 19. So I guess I'm happy that he gets to do something new. And I thought they did fabulously with the episode, which I can't say that there's ever really been an episode that I didn't love. These last 2 seasons have been incredible. Yes. The acting that they've done, they got to showcase probably my favorite 2 characters, which are Michonne and Daryl. Because Michonne that's her type of acting. When Michonne is going through something that bad, that's when you see that actress really get to showcase what she can do. Yeah. So that was amazing. Like you got to see the best in it. I would have to say my favorite thing that they did is that they pulled back 2 things from the very first episode of the season. The very first episode of the season, they were playing a song, and they were showing each of their faces. And they just right after that, or right before that, I can't remember it perfectly, they showed Rick with his eyes like really, really, really red. And you could tell that he had either been crying or like he was in big trouble, essentially. And they brought that back at the very end. They made the music almost the same, except way more aggressive. And they brought back what had happened that had caused Rick to look like that, which that's where I'm talking about the writing. So those two things were amazing. They tied the very beginning of the season to the very end of the loop of Carl's life. And it was like, that was just really cool because you didn't know where they were when you were seeing their face, where Rick was when you were seeing his eyes, and you couldn't imagine, but you knew it was bad. And it ends up being the death of his son, which is literally the worst thing it could ever be. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. I don't know. I should probably have been more sad about it, but I thought it was just so well done. I couldn't be sad because I had to be like, wow.
Yeah, it was definitely shocking, to say the least.
It was shocking that they did that, but I think it's a good move. I think Carl has some limitations as a character. I think any kid character has some limitations for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agreed with some of the things that were in the live chat where people were saying that Carl had gotten boring a little bit. I feel like it was kind of a similar situation, but different from Andrea, where Andrea's actress that played her did not exactly play the role the way it was in the graphic novel. Chandler Riggs didn't exactly play Carl the way he kind of is in the graphic novel. There's a little more angst. He's definitely much younger, much more immature in the graphic novel. This Carl kind of, as he grew up in real life so fast, where he's way too big for being 2.5 years into the apocalypse, which is where they are. If you've studied the way the timeline works, it's about 2.5. At the most, it could be is 3 years. You know, he was 8. Yeah. Now he's like 18 or whatever it is, 17. So too big of a jump there. So they kind of had to get rid of him. And I actually like it when I see stuff like that. I liked it when they killed off Andrea, and I like that they did that with Carl because it's going to open up a whole list of wild cards and moments that you can't expect and that you don't know what's coming. Whereas with every other show that follows a book or graphic novel or comic or whatever, you kind of always know what's coming. Even though with like the Marvel series coming up here pretty soon, we don't know for sure what's going to be Infinity War. But because I've read Infinity War Saga, I'm pretty sure I do know what's going to happen, at least in the first movie. So there's not going to be a lot of shocking moments for that for me. So I'm okay with them killing people off like that. I really can't wait to see what happens with season 9. I do hope Lauren Cohen comes back for season 9. But if she doesn't, that's another thing that opens it up. I like what they're doing with Rosita. I like the way that they're giving her more screen time. That's my favorite female character in the show. I know a lot of people don't like her for whatever reason, but she actually has a lot of depth. She's actually she's talked about how she's learned all these things from all these other characters. And we were speaking about representation a little bit earlier because Phil talked about it. And there aren't a lot of strong female Hispanic characters anywhere, like in film or TV. So it is kind of cool that you have one that's genuinely real, not forced. And that's exactly what would happen in the apocalypse. If that really did happen, there would be a good mix of everybody because different people would survive under different measures. So I really like what they're doing. I've loved season 8. If you guys in the chat didn't like season 8, let us know what you thought their issues with it were. If you've been watching season 8, I think it's pretty great. How do you feel about that, guys?
So I got to say this. I'm surprised at how many people want it to follow the graphic novel exactly. I'm surprised that people aren't like, oh, cool, something different. I guess a lot of people don't read the graphic novel, although I guess those also aren't the people mad about it. But I like the change. I like when they're not doing the same thing because that story has already been told. Let's tell a different one, which is, and I also find it really fascinating. I did not like Rosita for a very long time. I thought she was kind of an annoying character, but I was just saying the other day, I was like, they took that character. They knew exactly what they were doing with her. They took her from this firecracker, unstable, like crazy character when she was under Abraham to, they kind of did that whole nature versus nurture thing. When she was under that nurture, she was like Abraham. She was a firecracker. But then under Rick, she is strong. She is stable. She's listening. She sees it. She was the one. I thought the coolest thing they did with her was they did the scene where she said she looked at, they were hiding in the bushes waiting for Dwight to come by in the mid-season finale. And she said, it wasn't because of running the truck into the building that they got out. And even if it was, it's just a mistake. I've made them too. If I wouldn't have gone to try to kill Negan, maybe Sasha would be alive. Maybe she wouldn't. Yes. And it goes on from there. And she says all of that in the most stable possible way. And then after that, everybody walks off and she's the one that picks Dwight up. And I'm like, they just took her from this crazy, unstable character to the most logical, supportive person in the room. And that was really cool. So now I do like Rosita. Like very recently I started to like Rosita. And it's the difference of her being led by Abraham and Rick versus also how much she's built these skills. She's one of those people that watches everything around her and learns from it and develops herself by seeing what the best and worst things about everyone around her are, which is really cool. People like that, if you've ever met a person like that in real life, are really cool. So she's going to be an interesting character. It's not good timing in terms of the show or in terms of the world for Lauren Cohen to be asking for more money right now. And AMC is not a good company to be asking that of.
Oh no, they have had a very detailed past with being very tight on budgets for all their shows. Everything they've had, Mad Men, they ran through the same problems. There's all kinds of lawsuits that came out of that. I believe the same thing happened with Breaking Bad. If I have my facts correct on that, there's been some issues there as well. And then The Walking Dead, they always keep that budget really small and really tight, which that's just something AMC does. That's how they run their ship. They always have. They're probably never going to stop doing that. That budget that they have for each episode is so ridiculously tiny. It doesn't even make sense that you would treat your show this way, especially with what we found out recently, that they're not making millions off of each episode. They're potentially making billions off of each episode. And I know that sounds hard to believe for a TV show because it hasn't really happened.
Oh no, that show has got a following like no other TV show before.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, they have some type of loophole where they're able to exploit it to where a lot of the money doesn't get spread out evenly the way it would with another show when you have that many producers and that many people that fund it, essentially. So that's the reason why they're able to make so much more money on this show. And the merchandise is ridiculous. It actually grows year over year. Even if the ratings shrink, the merchandise sales actually increase over time. So they're making.
I am so guilty of that. That is me, like by myself, buying all that.
All right, guys. I think this has been an amazing first show.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I know I've been praising the chat, and people aren't going to believe me.
They were awesome. It was lit.
This was a fire chat from beginning to end.
Yes.
And I honestly, this is something that Avers and Moxxie and myself have talked about for months now. And, we've had meetings and we've sat down and we've talked with one another. And we wanted to bring a show that wasn't your average podcast. We didn't want to get up here and say the media is biased and Sony sucks and Nintendo is, they're garbage and Microsoft is garbage. We wanted to get up here and be three adults who love the industry, but not just the gaming industry. We love movies. We love film. We love we love TV shows. We love music. We love collectibles. We're going to bring something different each and every episode. And I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, cannot thank the people that took the time to spend the 2 hours with us. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was a little nervous coming into this because one, I've never been on camera before, right? So no one ever.
You did amazing, man. You look great.
Thank you. And and it just. We already had a good thing going because we met plenty of times before we went live. So we had a good rapport with one another. That wasn't my concern. But the people coming out, I cannot thank everybody enough, really.
Yeah, same here. I know Moxxie feels the same. I'll let you go again, Moxxie, here in just a second. But thank you guys for coming out. Like I said, stick with us. We're gonna continue to grow the show into something else. I think 4 or 5 years from now, this is going to be a whole another level of presentation. And this is kind of how you have to start here. If you want to grow your channel, if you want to get the subs. Speaking of that, sub to Mr. Boom. We'll put his link. We don't have it yet. We'll put it in the description, so it'll go up.
Yes.
Come back and check it out again if you missed the beginning. A few people said they missed the first part, so definitely check it out again. It looks like we're doing good. I think we had 4 dislikes, and now we're down to 2. So somebody changed their mind there. So that's awesome.
Changing one mind at a time.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Share it if you can. Shares are the biggest thing. So share makes the biggest difference when it comes to all that stuff. People decide whether or not they're going to sub to us based off of what you're saying. So definitely, if you can, on social media, friends and family. Boom's been doing that for a while. He's brought so many people to us. Cyrus in the chat, who's Operation. We've gamed with him. Eric the Red. Lots of people have been bringing people to us, and thank you guys so much for doing that. And Moxxie, if you have anything you want to say, we'll go ahead and close it out and we'll end it there.
No, I mean, thanks to the chat, we had an average of 50 watching, which means that Boom won the bet, but way better than that. It means that a lot of people came out to support, which is more than we could have possibly asked for. And the chat was seriously lit. So I can't imagine if our first chat was that lit, then I can't even imagine what our next chat's going to look like. So keep coming out, keep suggesting things, agree with us, disagree with us, tell us what you want to hear. This is kind of one of those, we kind of mentioned it on our show. There's not a lot of rigidity to this. It's not necessarily on a set day at a set time with a set type of topic list or a set type of show necessarily, other than we're live, we got cameras, we got mics. That's kind of the only rigidity to it. So look forward to some slow progression as we get used to this, but all different kinds of things to come. So I think we're all looking forward to it, and we appreciate the support.
Yeah, I could not have said any better myself. So we'll close it out with that. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you here either next week or the week after that. I think we can commit to doing that pretty soon.
Yes,
that sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks again.
Awesome.